So the first sign that obsession is present is when someone continues to contact you, even though you have clearly asked them not to contact you. So in most cases, a situation like this comes up after a breakup or maybe after some interest was expressed in someone, but then you realize you're not that interested in them and you communicate that, but then they continue to contact you. Now, the first thing I want to say is I'm not here to give everybody a one-size-fits-all breakup approach. So I definitely think that some people just have a mutual agreement when they break up that, hey, we just need to have a clean break so we can move on as quickly as possible. So let's just cut off all contact and move on. Other people, both of them agree like, hey, we need a few conversations. We need some time to, have some closure and just talk about what we need to talk about. And then we can fully move on after we kind of go through a couple different conversations and a period of time basically of breaking up. It gets complicated when one person wants a clean break and doesn't want to talk. The other person wants that process and wants to talk it out, wants to maybe even be friends still, and the other person doesn't. So the reason I say that is not to advocate for one thing or the other, but in that third scenario where one person wants to not speak and the other person does, if that person who doesn't want to continue to contact that person says that clearly, and the other person just blows by it and doesn't listen to them and continues to contact them over and over and over again, that is a sign of obsession. Now, that person doesn't need to agree that this is the right thing, that, they don't deserve another chance to be spoken to. They don't have to like the course of action that their ex is taking. But if they can't show respect to that person's wishes, that's a sign of obsession. So in the Bible, God actually gives humans so much freedom to do things that he wouldn't want them to do. So for example, in Luke 15, in the story of the prodigal son, the son tells the father he wants to leave, and clearly that was not good. He was not showing love for the father. But the father in that story that Jesus was telling lets him go. And so he just says, okay, you want to leave me? Go ahead. Even though I love you, I want you to stay. He actually lets him go. In 1 Samuel chapter 8, when Samuel is upset because Israel is asking for a king, and he knows that they should follow God and not a king, but God actually tells Samuel, okay, give the people a king. Tell them how bad it's going to be. Tell them that this isn't going to be good for them, but give them a king if that's what they want. Another example of this is in Revelations 3, where it says Jesus stands at the door and knocks. He's knocking on the door. He's not barging in. He's not kicking it down. There is a sign of respect, and he gives humans the choice to open it or keep it closed, which is not good for them. Long story short, we as humans need to show other humans the same respect that God gives us. The second sign of obsession is when someone threatens self-harm if that person they're obsessed with leaves them. Now, the first thing I want to say about this topic is that anytime someone threatens self-harm, you should always take that threat seriously. You should never undermine it or just blow it off because you think they're being manipulative or you don't believe them. If anyone threatens self-harm for any reason, you should dial 911 and you should tell the proper authorities to go check on that person to make sure that they're okay. Now, having said that, you can't let other people control your life through threats of self-harm. So anytime someone threatens self-harm if you leave them, that's a very classic and dangerous sign of obsession. The fourth sign of obsession is when someone is holding on to wildly unlikely hopes that this relationship will be restored one day. Sometimes obsession can get so severe that the signs that someone else on the outside would see that this relationship will never come back and will never happen again. The person who's obsessed is totally blinded by it, and they hold on to wildly unlikely hopes that this relationship will work out. The person that they're obsessed with could have told them 100 times, no, I don't like you, I will never be with you. Or that person maybe even starts dating someone else, or maybe even gets married. Or there could even be years and years of silence between these two. But when there's unhealthy obsession, that person can still hold on to this extremely illogical hope that the relationship will actually come back, even though all the normal signs are pointing to this not happening. For more on how God actually speaks through the circumstances of our life, check out the video in the card above, and I talk a lot more about how you can properly interpret circumstances as the Word of God instructs us. And finally, number 5, the 5th sign of obsession is when there's ongoing deep depression that's based on this relationship or lack of relationship if this person's obsessed with someone that's moved on from them. Depression is a huge topic, and there's many different types and levels to depression. There's just normal depression that's appropriate when there's a loss in your life and you just have to go through that season of grieving, and that is actually healthy to move on from something. So that's not what I'm talking about. There's also clinical depression where there's just a chemical imbalance in your body that you might need some, more practical and mental health type of solutions to help you with that physical problem of it. But then there's also this type of depression that's based on a relationship, and you go into this dark depression that's just unending and it won't pass, and you can't really get past it. And a lot of times when that's occurring because of a relationship, that's because there was an obsession formed and there was an unhealthy bond that was created with this person that's no longer in your life, thus leaving this massive void in your heart. So how can you actually overcome obsession? This whole video really was just to point out when obsession might be happening to you, or you might actually be obsessed with somebody. But I also want to leave you with some hope on how you can actually overcome obsession. It's a big topic, and it's something that's not just going to happen right away. But ultimately, the way that you overcome obsession is by putting God in his rightful place in your heart. Many times we get obsessed with that person because we gave the throne of our heart to that person, when in reality, that place in our heart and in our life should only be for God alone. So when someone else is sitting on the throne of your heart, you're going to be obsessed with them. To break that obsession, you have to put God first and foremost, and again, find all of your hope first in him, so that when you know everything I ultimately need and desire is actually found in God, then you'll be able to overcome these other idols that may have been formed in your life. I'm going to leave 2 videos right here that are relevant to this topic that we talked about. This one's about moving on, and this one is about overcoming obsessive thoughts about someone. So check out those videos if you want to keep learning with me. Thanks for watching, and God bless.